Hey, PBC. My name is AC. I'm the executive pastor, and each year for Holy Week, we take some time to put out devotionals. So those have been videos and written blogs, but this year we thought we'd mix it up a little bit and have a podcast-style video or audio. You can listen to this as audio as well. And it's a way for us to get to know some of our staff members better this week, but also as a whole church to be preparing our hearts for Easter, for Resurrection Sunday. And so we're going to take some time to walk through really the stations of the cross, the story of what it took Jesus to get to the cross, and ultimately the celebration of resurrection that we'll all come together on Sunday to do. And so we're going to kick things off today with the Triumphal Entry and Toni Duty, our kids director. Toni, welcome to the podcast.
Glad I could be on the podcast. The podcast that's now a podcast.
This is now a podcast. The Love Moves Holy Week devotional, maybe once ever podcast.
One and done.
One and done. I mean, you know.
Or could be here to stay.
When you knock it out of the park, do you need to bat again?
No.
Okay.
We're just going to hold it in high esteem.
So, Toni, as we start, before we jump into the passage, I thought it'd be helpful just for people to get to know you a little bit better. I'm really curious, what are the things that you kind of nerd out on, or like that you just, people don't really think you're into or whatever, for whatever reason, but that's what you like think about at night?
What do I think about at night?
Maybe that's not the question I'm asking you.
I get it. I honestly hate this question because I don't know what I nerd out on until you ask me this question and I have to think about it. And I have to say, because we're sitting in a space that's surrounded by things I love, it's plants. And that's a newer thing in my life is plants. Because when you have little kids, you can't have plants. But now that I have big kids, I can have all the plants I want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I talk to them. Yeah, I know it's weird, but all of my plants, we have great conversation.
I will say, like, around our office, you have a real green thumb.
Thank you.
I mean, you have rescued plants, maybe out of my office even.
Proudly, that plant resides in my office now. So,
yeah.
Yes, he does. He lives there, and he's happy as can be.
All right. Well, for me, I think it's a well-known secret that I'm kind of into Disney. And I'm not like dressing up like Peter Pan or something weird, just to be clear.
I would like to see that. That would be great.
I don't know that anybody needs to see that. But just like I have read a bunch of books about Disney and like silly things, like every CEO's memoir or whatever. And I love going to Disneyland, and taking my kids to Disneyland now is the best thing ever. Just seeing them get so excited about that. But I think that's also kind of helps me like transition to the next question for you is, what is like a tradition that you have for Easter? You know, outside of, we spend a lot of time planning and prepping as a church, but for you guys, how do you celebrate as a family? So
when I thought about this question, I had to reflect obviously back to my growing up. And growing up, we did not have a lot of Easter tradition. And it was simply, we get up, maybe there's an Easter outfit involved in that, and then come to church and then go home. So when we had kids, we wanted to change it up because I didn't want it to be another holiday for the sake of a holiday. So around any holiday, especially one that has a religious idea around it, like Easter and Christmas, we wanted to make sure our kids really understood what we were celebrating and why we were celebrating it. So from the time my kids were little till even now, if I force them to listen to my nonsense, we share what the Easter story, we just talk about the life of Christ, what happened in that time for him, what he was going through. In fact, several years ago, we had a bunch of college kids that were in our life, and we sat down and watched The Passion of the Christ together. And that was hard and brought on great conversation. And just one of those things that we felt like was really important to be true and honest about what does this time look like. So now it's just listening to mom talk about Jesus a lot. Yeah. That would be our biggest tradition. That's good. Maybe an Easter basket too. Yeah, a nice gift. I feel like Lauren does that really well for our kids. Like for me, I grew up like Easter brunch. I just remember at my grandparents' house, like after church, we would go to Easter brunch at their house and usually get to watch the Masters, which I honestly might remember just as much as anything else from that day. But I also like, did you know the Masters? You don't know anything about golf probably, but the Masters is not always on Easter. Oh, I might know more than you know, thanks to my oldest child.
Oh, are you big into golf?
I'm not big into golf, but he is, so he shares
that's
with me.
A supportive mom.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys watch tournaments like Sunday afternoon?
No, but he tells me all about them.
Yeah, who's your favorite golfer?
My son would be my favorite golfer.
That's a good answer.
So yeah, my son would be my favorite golfer. Second to my son, maybe he would be proud if I said Scotty Scheffler.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. That would be about it.
Yeah,
That's
he's pretty
as
good.
far as I'm going to go. That's enough talk for me.
That's enough
On
golf
golf.
talk.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thinking about Easter, you said that one of your traditions really is like trying to point to Jesus with
Absolutely.
your family, with your kids.
Yep.
Even as adults now, like still doing that. As we think about the beginning of the story, for most people, whether you're pulling it from Matthew or Luke, this depiction of a triumphal entry. So we have the Passover, which is this tremendous like festival in Jewish culture in ancient Israel, where they're celebrating God's really redemption, God's salvation, because of the Passover during the time in Egypt where they were enslaved, and he comes and he takes their firstborn son, but with the blood of the lamb, they are redeemed, or they're rescued, right? They're spared. And so for us as Christians, there's all kinds of imagery there that we could talk about like on Thursday and Friday with some of the others. But for us today, that story really starts with the triumphal entry. So there's crowds coming into Jerusalem because of the festival that's already there. Right. And then Jesus has been like building all of his ministry to this point. And the popularity, the miracles, the teaching with authority, the things that people have heard about and curiosity has brought crowds along the street as he enters into Jerusalem during this massive time. I mean, one commentary I've read in the past was like 1 million more people might come, so to speak, to Jerusalem. And so as you reflected on that, what stood out to you about this idea that Jesus is coming in as like this conquering king?
That's a great question. I think when I think about this whole story, and even just going back and rereading and just reminding myself of all of this, I think what stands out to me the most is when you read the Gospels, how often we find that the stories will only be depicted once throughout the Gospel, but the fact that this was depicted 4 different times from 4 different perspectives, to me first was fascinating. Second, I think just the humble state that Jesus had to be in to know exactly what he was walking into. While crowds are celebrating, he knows what this week is about. And that personally, I could never, which is exactly why he's Jesus, right?
Yeah.
But I can't imagine knowing all this was written, he's coming to fulfill prophecy, and this is the beginning. And that's hurts my heart in a way.
What do you
makes
mean by
me
that?
excited in a way. Again, just the humility that it takes to walk into that time. And I only know my imperfectness in how I would say, no way. You can't ask me to do this, Lord. This is too much. I would definitely have been in the garden praying, please take this cup from me. But knowing that Jesus did exactly what he came here to do and stepped into a celebration, but knowing what was on the other side of that.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's interesting thinking about how many of us might be tempted to be excited about being part of the triumphal entry. It's this rock stars, Beatles, like, I don't know what the more modern, I don't know if there honestly is a modern example as opposed to like the Beatlemania.
Taylor Swift.
Maybe Taylor Swift. That's a good example. Yeah. Taylor Swift, like she comes into town and people are as excited as they could be about anybody else.
There would be beads involved.
There would be lots of bracelets. Yeah. Like I think it's really like, it reads like that. It reads like this joy of like, this is amazing. Like, let's be a part of this. And I think the way that you put it as far as like, Jesus already knows what's coming. And he knows like this is just a part of the Father's plan, and he's just being an obedient son. And at some point it goes to the garden in Gethsemane where he's praying, take this cup away from me. Like that is an incredible sign of humility, even in the midst of like sort of that rock star moment. Like it's humility that's taking him down the road on this like cult where it isn't really a conquering king, right? He is like a humble servant that's coming in to bring peace. So, how do you feel like we can reflect on that and then begin to prepare, like taking this time this week to prepare for the sacrifice and the celebration?
I think the celebration portion comes because of the cross. If we can look ahead to look back, I think that's exactly what it is. I think we, on the other side of all of this, we are celebrating our new life in Christ, right? But I do think that we have to approach that with humility. Jesus died for us. I'm a sinner. Like, I deserve none of that. And I would expect it from no one. I would not sacrifice myself, maybe for my kids, but I love you guys. I love my staff, but I'm not going to hang on the cross for you. That's just me being honest. But yet Jesus did. Knowing all of us are a mess, knowing some of us might walk away, might make these choices that we just don't want to do this anymore because it's hard, or we don't like it, or it doesn't fit our narrative. And I think that, that's the reminder in all of it, that he did this for all of us and expected nothing in return. And that's
cool. What are maybe some practical ways that you try to set aside time during this week? I mean, it's busy. We know that Easter, in some ways, for a church, it's a bigger production. The reality is that any church, for the most part, expects more people to come. And that's not a bad thing. Like, my heart is, I want to see our kids building and our worship center and our chapel and like every space filled with more people, because I want them to hear the message of Jesus. And they may only come once this year. And maybe that's the time to plant a seed that ultimately grows into plants later. And at the same time, for our hearts to be protected in some ways, how do you try to do that this week, balancing those two things?
I think that's why I love like the Lenten season. I love the ramp up, because for me, I don't want it to be like, oh, it's Holy Week, let me stop and focus only on Holy Week. I love the reminders leading up to all of this and taking the time and making sure that, my heart posture is in this season is coming in with humility too. Because again, let's look ahead. I don't deserve any of this. The least I can do is make time to be with the Lord. The least I can do is sacrifice myself and all of the things that are going on, because I want the same things, right? Like, I want our spaces to be filled. I want our kids to hear Jesus. But if I don't have Jesus, they're not going to hear Jesus. If I'm not preparing myself, I'm not witnessing to my kids. I'm not witnessing to my family what I want for them. So if I'm not prepared, if I don't take time to get in the Word, to journal, to read, to pray, to fast, for that matter, then I'm in no shape to give anybody else anything. So that's really,
You don't have to tell me details, but I'm curious, because you mentioned journaling. I think it's okay. What does that look like for you? Because to be honest with you, I love journaling, and I've been in and out of habits of it.
Sure.
But practically, sometimes it's a challenge to figure out what to write.
I think for me, it's a lot of prayers, or conversations with your best friend. What would I say if Jesus were sitting there? I think that's big for me. One of the things I always remind my kids and the kids in our ministry is that prayer is just a conversation with God, and He wants to hear our voice. And my voice can come out on paper. I may not ever say it out loud, like we're sitting in a chair across from each other, but it's definitely smattered across paper and through books and whatnot. And I think the fun piece to me about journaling my prayers in that sense is going back and being reminded of the answers to those prayers. And some of them have just been simple prayers in a season, or some of them have been big, long, ongoing prayers. But just to go back and see God's faithfulness, or the moments that He's opened doors really wide, or the moments He's closed them very clearly shut, and just to see what has come on the other side of that. I don't ever want it to be something that I have to go to and, this is the journal prompt for today. I don't want that. That's too much in the box to me, putting God in the box, and I don't want that. So for me, it's just a lot of prayers and thoughts, and even God moments that I have had. That is another thing I love to do, is just, thank you for that rainbow that you threw in the sky last week out of nowhere. It was beautiful. Just trying to just recognize the things that He's given me, and maybe just for me, and maybe it's an experience for all of us, but really just that's what it looks like.
I like that. I don't know if you ever saw the cartoon Doug. but like I watched that as a kid, and it always started with him journaling. So if I'm honest, like that's probably part of just like my format.
You want to be Doug?
No, not that I want to be Doug, but it just every episode started with like dear journal, and like that's kind of literally most of the time is like dear God, like just to try to get something started. But it is also it's just a letter or just a, like you said, that conversation. With if you were sitting across the table, so to speak. Do you ever use like scripture to inform that at all? Like I think that's something I have done a lot of is like it's not everything, but it's kind of the jumping off point is like whatever I'm reading that day will be a part of it.
For sure. If that's what has prompted that conversation, definitely bringing that in or going back, roping it into, this is what you promised here. This is what you said here. Or, this is how I'm feeling in this moment. And this is what I've read you have said, or this is how I feel about that. So definitely is part of it. Sometimes it's that again, and sometimes it's just a prayer of whatever.
Definitely.
So just, I don't ever put a format to how I have a conversation with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's a conversation.
Exactly.
So that's cool. I like that. What are you excited about? Like, so we have Easter, we have Holy Week, a lot of time of preparation. I mean, literally planning, but also like we're spending time with these devotion videos and things. But what are you excited about for Easter and kind of even maybe like after Easter for our church?
I think what excites me is the opportunity that we have, again, specifically in kids, to share the gospel message with our kids. For some of our kids, this is going to be the first time they hear any of this. And that's so important to me, that our kids understand that we serve a God who loves us so much, he sent his son Jesus to die for us. And that we are sinners, and that it's as simple as saying yes to following Christ, and it will change your world forever. It's not going to make it easy, but you're never alone. You're always with God who loves you so, so much. And I want our kids to know that. And if we just get to sprinkle that on them this Easter Sunday, and then they take that with them, that is something that no one can ever take away. So I look forward to Easter and any other Sunday that we share the gospel message, but specifically Easter, because it opens the doors to people who don't usually come, who aren't usually here, or they're a friend of someone, and it's fun, and you have a cute dress, and so let's go to church kind of thing. So, and I think the overall sense I get just in my time with the Lord, and when I think about this place and this space, God's doing stuff here. And I think that Easter can be, and probably will be, a catalyst to even more of what he's doing here. So I just think the future here at PBC is crazy, amazing. Yeah, getting ready to blow the doors off this place in a good way. Okay. In a good way.
I like the optimism.
I have it. I'm here for it. We're ready for it. Maybe.
I think absolutely not. But I want.
We are.
I'd rather be learning in the midst of it, for sure.
We will be learning in the midst of it, for sure. It's been good. It'll be good.
Toni, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
I know it's a busy week, busy time, and busy season, and it's really valuable. I appreciate having your voice as part of this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. First time on the podcast.
First time.
First time on the first podcast.
My first time too.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Here's the heart behind having these Devo videos or audio that you're listening to on like Spotify or something. We want to take time this week to really be preparing our hearts for Good Friday, for Easter, for the resurrection, and to look at an opportunity as a church to be celebrating what God did through Jesus on the cross and in his resurrection, but also not to just do that for ourselves, but for others. And so as we're encouraged each morning when we listen to these devotion videos together, hopefully it's encouraging us to be thinking about who we can be inviting to join us for Easter, who it is that we're praying for, that we can share the gospel with. It doesn't have to be just on Easter Sunday that we do that. We can be doing that in our workplaces and our neighborhoods on a daily basis throughout our lives. And also for the follow-up, what's coming after Easter, to prepare our hearts now to be thinking about how are we going to continue to be witnesses in those places and with those people that join us for Easter Sunday. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.